I want a Diwali where people will walk into a store or walk out with a solar panel as well.
What exactly is climate change?
Climate change in Hindi is what Jalvayu Parivartan, wind water change. Gets too hot, your crop will die. Gets too cold, it will not germinate. One visible impact is amount of rainfall.
My wedding was fully sustainable. Like, I'll go thirsty and not use plastic water.
My child knows plastic is death
Yes.
for her. Sustainability is cool.
We've got to shift climate change from something that only scientists talk about or policymakers talk about into our living rooms.
This is not a third party who's going to come fix it. If not me, then who will?
What drives you to make films like that?
Films have the power to mass change habits. Films should go everywhere. My career spans from Lunchbox, Salam India to India's most violent film, Kill, Elephant Whisperer.
80% of Indians are living in areas that are highly vulnerable to climate extreme.
One action that every household could take that could make a real difference.
My director finished her speech, and when I came in, the mic was cut off. So I'll go back and finish my speech. Another Oscar for our
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you know that 14 out of the 20 most polluted cities in the world are in India? And each year, the reality of climate change feels sharper. There are longer and harsher summers, there are flash floods that wipe out homes, water shortages in our cities, and unpredictable rains that leave our farmers and us struggling. We see heat waves making life unbearable, children and the elderly suffering with respiratory illnesses, families spending more just to keep cool, to keep safe, and to keep healthy. For me, climate change stopped being a distant headline the day I realized how much it's already seeped into our day-to-day living. Smoggy winters where stepping outside feels heavy, or electricity bills that keep climbing every summer because the air conditioner is just running non-stop. It's no longer something that is happening to someone else somewhere far away. It's happening to all of us right here, right now. And that is why this conversation is the need of the hour. Not just to discuss, but to ask. What active steps can we take in our homes, in our choices, in our communities to create a future that is healthier, that is safer, and that is more sustainable? Hello and welcome to All About Her, a space where we have honest and meaningful conversations about women's health, wellness, happiness, self-care, and today, Mother Earth. Today we're discussing climate change and sustainability. And today's episode brings together two very powerful voices. One sharing her story and one sharing his expertise. First off, we have one of India's most celebrated film producers whose work has brought Indian independent cinema to the global scale. She's the co-founder of Sikya Entertainment. She has twice been part of Academy Award-winning projects, whether it's Period End of Sentence on menstrual health and The Elephant Whisperers on conservation. And in 2025, she launched Women in Film India at Cannes to drive gender equity and systemic change in the industry. Please join me in welcoming Guneet Monga. And our second guest is a global leader in climate and energy who has advised governments and international organizations across 54 countries. He has played a pivotal role in shaping clean energy initiatives and has been recognized for his work in creating practical solutions for a sustainable future. He is the founder and CEO of the Council on Energy, Environment and Water and has been appointed as Special Envoy for South Asia for COP30 climate negotiations by the government of Brazil. And under his leadership, CEEW has risen to become one of Asia's leading policy research institutions and among the world's 20 best climate think tanks. Please welcome Dr. Arunabha Ghosh. So thank you both very much for climbing up all the stairs and being here today. You know, I was talking in my introduction about climate change, and I think up until a few years ago, when we thought about climate change, we thought about perhaps like one melting glacier in Uttarakhand, or we think about not somebody like yourself, but somebody like yourself, you know, speaking maybe in Geneva about the climate, and it's something very distant and very removed that we may or may not feel the impact of in our lives. But today, whether it's flooding in various parts of India, which everybody knows about, of course, whether it's our AC bills going up, whether it's about the AQI and us worrying about whether to send our children to school or not, we're feeling it very palpably in many ways. So I thought I'd ask the both of you why you think this conversation today about sustainability, about climate change is so important. And I thought I'll start with you, Aruna.
Well, Soha, thanks for having me on your program. It's the issue of our quality of life. It's not about the melting glacier. And our quality of life is impacted by, as you said, the floods or the lack of water.
Yeah.
There's too much, too little, or too polluted water. Then it's too hot or it's too cold. It's not, the air is not good enough to breathe. We've got to bring this whole conversation into our living rooms, at our dinner tables. We've got to shift climate change from something that only scientists talk about or policymakers talk about to how is it impacting our quality of life?
Right.
But also on the upside, what does this mean for the new kinds of technologies that are around us? What kind of investments would you be making? You know, where would your savings go? I always ask my colleagues, where would you put your own savings? You know, in an energy efficient product or not? What kind of careers will our children have? So actually, the climate crisis is also opening up a whole new range of opportunities in our economy.
Yes.
Right? And I think the more we have just general conversation as citizens rather than as experts, I think that will do better for climate than anything we could do in our laboratories.
You know, you're so right. I think there's this whole thing about climate tech now, so that people are seriously considering investing into. But we'll come to that later.
Yeah.
Guneet, thank you for being here. And a lot of people might be wondering why the two of you and what the connection is. You're a citizen, you're a good citizen, you're a lovely person, and you make wonderful films that everybody knows are not just entertaining, but they also have something to say. You've been a huge amplifier of women's voices, of course, and I want to talk about that a little bit later. But I wanted to ask you whether you've ever thought about climate change, sustainability. Have you ever thought about it in a sort of day-to-day way?
Absolutely. I think especially the AQI is crippling, I would say. I mean, it's far more urgent than like daily conversation, because I'm married into a family in Delhi. They all live there. And not that Bombay is any behind, but just like it's frightening and it's crippling. And I think about it is what is it that I can do? I mean, how many those air cleanser little pods we have everywhere, more we keep buying, you know, just like, does that even help? Like, you know, it's, I think it's being very, very helpless, you know, it's not just like a distant thought or something that, you know, the scientists and the government will handle, and, you know, it's in our houses and it's the air we breathe. Yeah. You know, you question the fact that, you know, do you want to bring kids up here? Do you really, how do you imagine a life? Or, you know, go buy a house in the outskirts, then live out of there, work from home, then come into the city for as little. So all these are like everyday conversations, right? You know, so it's, the AQI is just out of control.
And just to take on from there, because your films deal with a bunch of issues, you know, whether it's about, you've got Period End of Sentence, you have Elephant Whisperer, you've got, all of them have something layered within them. So that choice to make films like this, I know you've spoken about it before, but if you could just tell us here a little bit about what drives you to make films like that.
You know, I feel like films are very powerful as a medium, because we can't go everywhere, speak to everybody, make sense, but films go everywhere.
Yeah.
Films should go everywhere, you know. Hopefully more people discover it, more people talk about it around the world. I wouldn't even know what is the impact of these films, and especially winning Oscar and then overnight the world knowing about the film. It matters to me on stuff that my name is there. At the end of the day, what are we trying to say? You know, yes, it has to be entertaining. Yes, we are in 100% equity business. We have to return that money, and there is a syntax of storytelling that comes with the pressure of that money and that equity. So doing the dance, knowing the dance well, doing the dance, happy to. There's also some things that you create, especially when it comes to a short documentary, you create in your own understanding of years of experience in terms of giving back, you know. It's very, very rewarding that they also go and win. But the idea, win big around the world, but the idea definitely was to give it to NGOs, to let them play it around, to let the conversation be as simplified. Because if you look at even Period End of Sentence, or if you look at Elephant Whisperers, Period End of Sentence was shot over a year and a half, 2 years. And Elephant Whisperers was around over 5 years.
Really?
But you look at a story for 40 minutes, 39 minutes. You know, you live a journey, things that we can't even understand on everyday basis, and that is the power of cinema.
Yes.
You know, when the music hits and the crescendo goes up, and then there is a thought that, you know, the character can put out there, but that's also life lived.
Yes.
You know, the thoughts come with life lived, and for that to be able to, the essence of that to be put onto cinema is the power of storytelling.
Yes.
So
You went up on stage to get the
I was just
Oscar.
saying that this is India's first Oscar for any Indian film, won by 2 women here, and I still went ahead and said that.
I know, but
And
what
people
happened?
clapped.
Was it just a lack of, ran out of time?
Yeah, so we were cut off in
Mid-sentence.
my director finished her speech, and when I came in, the mic was cut off. So
So
I'll go back and finish my speech.
next time.
Another award, another Oscar for our
Yes.
It's interesting because, you know, I thought that, again, what do the two of you have in common? And there's policy making on one side, there's research, there's storytelling on one side. And I know as somebody who, again, belongs to popular cinema in some way, the impact of that, whether we like it or not sometimes. You know, people do come to the cinema or watch television and they're impacted by it. And those stories, as Guneet said, stay with you.
Yeah.
You know, so Elephant Whisper was so beautiful. And you just think about, and you don't have to, of course, in cinema, you will not teach because then you might turn people away. They don't want to know that they're being taught something. Like my daughter, if you say, read this, it's going to improve your mind, she will not want to read it. But if you tell a story and unconsciously, subconsciously, people are imbibing certain values, then it is beautiful. I wanted to ask you, just to press that point, where, again, does that come from, that desire to think bigger than yourself? Of course, you said it is business and you have to have a return on that investment, but still, you know, you could do that making a comedy, which doesn't touch on anything. So I will come to you also in terms of what draws you to this. But Guneet, as a filmmaker, what draws you to making an issue-based film?
I think it comes from upbringing, and we're all products of our exposure.
Yeah.
We are all products of what we saw, what we subconsciously learned, and what we want to do with the rooms we enter and the options and choices we have. So I think I give a lot of credit to my school, and
Which was what?
Which is Bluebell School in Delhi. I was in the Environment Club. I wrote a program for UN. We stood first in class 10th, and we built socially aware programs from school. I was part of the Green Brigade. I remember as a school kid going to the Chief Minister's office, asking for land to plant trees, making calls for sapling donations, going to corporates. It was a large part of my life, you know, making that happen and feeling a sense of victory from there. I do wonder sometimes in my alone times, what would I do if I was not a filmmaker? I would have definitely been in nonprofit. I would have definitely been in a space of where I could use my skill as communicator to be able to enter rooms and, have a purpose. So I think about it often, so I would have definitely done that. So somewhere that is imbibed in consciousness. And even when I do go about making films like Kill, which is like an out and out crazy action film, India's most violent film,
I know.
From my career spans from Lunchbox or, Salam India to Kill, Elephant Whisperer, documentaries.
We'd like to be inside your mind.
So even then, a large part of our conversation with our writer-director has been like, how are we portraying women? How are we shooting women? I know otherwise it's a testosterone heavy, give it all. It's a genre film, commit to the genre and go all way. But in this space, how are we shooting and how are we committing the characters and what is it that they are doing? So it's just like, those conversations are important and then solutions come from it. There's so much of soft power that is needed, because everything cannot be a hard line. And like your little daughter doesn't understand, nobody understands a hard line.
Yes.
So I think cinema exists in those soft culture.
Yeah, lovely. Arunabha, what drew you to making this your profession?
Yeah, I didn't end up here with a strategy in mind. I studied economics at college and then did a PhD in international relations. In between, I worked at the UN on all sorts of things, including on violent conflict and its impact on people. Did a PhD on international trade. So it was a very long-winded approach towards this. I'd worked on access to medicines, rights of farmers. What drew me to sustainability more generally was a realization that this was not an afterthought. This was going to be our reality. And I realized this at the first climate conference I went to, which was in Copenhagen in 2009. It's ironical because we're talking about global warming. It was -8 degrees. But since then, I've realized climate change is not about just warming. It's actually climate extremes.
Extreme temperatures.
And I'm standing there with another 10,000 people wondering, is this the way to solve the problem? Right? And I came to the conclusion, no. So at that time, I was an academic splitting time between Princeton and Oxford. And I went back to my office in Princeton and wrote up this concept note for what became the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. And the idea was very much about not just doing the policy analysis, but getting, first of all, a lot more data. You know, we're often talking about these things, you know, in a hand-waving way. Get granular data about what it matters to people, you know, not just in general. People don't understand averages. What is 1.5 degrees of Celsius? What does it mean?
Exactly.
But if I tell you your home in Lower Parel is going to get flooded by X or Y percentage, then that's it connects with you differently, right? Or if you're a farmer, you say, okay, you're going to plant 3 crops. One of them is going to fail this year, right? So that's basically 1/3 of your expected income is going to get impacted. So once we start moving away from the jargon to, you know, what you and I feel as citizens, then it matters. The other point, I mean, of course, we are not filmmakers, but we invest a lot as CEEW in outreach, and we try and do it in many different ways. We've had a series of 16 short documentaries, which we call the Faces of Climate Resilience, showcasing stories from across India, how communities are fighting back. And that documentary series has won awards across the world. But we've also taken our scientific reports and converted them into rap songs. We've had poetry competitions on climate. So how do you get the message out?
Right.
You know? So that's really what we're on the mission for.
And that's what we want to do today a little bit about, I think, demystifying climate change, bringing it home. So if you could just tell some of our viewers, what exactly is climate change? And you did refer to that in terms of the flooding, in terms of the temperatures rising, in terms of the AQI. But if you could just briefly
yes,
tell us what exactly is climate change.
Right. So the climate has always been changing. That's one thing. But what we are experiencing now is what we call anthropogenic climate change. This is the only technical term I use. Anthropogenic means what's instigated by human activities.
Right.
For the last 250 odd years, we've had this thing called the Industrial Revolution.
Yes. In
the process, we've been burning coal, oil, gas, all sorts of fossil fuels. Those emit things called greenhouse gases. Those gases go up into the atmosphere, they form an envelope, and they basically trap the heat. So the sun's rays come, hits the Earth's surface, and it exits. But when you have those gases, they trap it. It's like a blanket. So they form a greenhouse. And in the process, your average temperatures keep rising, right? That then triggers the broader changes. So it's not just about temperature rise. That then has an implication for the warming of the oceans. It has an implication for glacier melt, etc. That then gets, it manifests as extreme weather.
Right.
So, for instance, today, 80% of Indians are living in areas that are highly vulnerable to climate extremes. It could be a flood, it could be a drought, it could be a cyclone. Sometimes the same district is showing all these 3 different trends.
Right.
Then you have urban flooding. right? We are seeing massive increase in urban flooding. A lot of it is poor urban planning, but a lot of it is intense rainfall. Right? So a lot more rainfall coming in a lot shorter time periods. Heat stress. See, we say, oh, we got a fever. Fever means from 97.4, it becomes 100, you got a fever, right? The same happens with crops. Crops also catch fever, right? So there's a narrow band within which things are optimal. Gets too hot, your crop will die. Gets too cold, it will not germinate, right? So then, whether it's your physiology, whether it's your mental development, whether it's the economy, whether it's the infrastructure, all this gets manifested. So climate change in Hindi is what Jalvayu Parivartan. What does that mean? Wind, water change. That doesn't mean anything. It's actually Vatavaran Asantulan. There's an instability in our ambient environment, and we feel it. There are toxins in our air, in our water, in our soil, and we are ingesting all of this. That's again impacting our quality of life.
And I believe also diseases
Absolutely.
like chikungunya and dengue, they all get experiencing more and more cases of that. And sometimes that is connected with the climate change, and the heat and the humidity is continuing and mosquitoes are thriving. And there's also a connection which affects, and I worry about these things certainly. So you touched on a few, but again, if you could just say some of the visible impacts of climate change, if you could again just.
Okay. One visible impact is amount of rainfall.
Right.
We have analyzed, so we have about 700 odd districts in India. We have about 4,500 plus tehsils, right, sub-districts. We've analyzed all this data for the last 50 years. We see that in 55% of those tehsils, the southwest monsoon, basically most of the rainfall in India happens in 3 months. It's increased. So you would think, oh, that's a great thing, but it's actually increased with more intensity.
Right.
That's why you're seeing sudden cloud bursts and urban flooding, etc. That's one thing. Secondly, on heat, our bodies regulate their temperatures automatically, but it happens when there's a difference between the night temperature and the day temperature.
Right.
That's why we rest at night. Everything slows down. That's what a peaceful night's sleep is supposed to be. We are seeing across the country the variation between the daytime temperature and the nighttime temperature is going down. So you're getting more warm nights than hot days.
Right.
We all complain about the hot days. Oh, I can't go here, I can't go there. The real implication is the warm nights.
Right.
Because then your body is not able to regulate. Right?
And then you're turning on the air conditioner, and then
you're turning on. Okay, so then you're talking about air conditioners, right? So the third thing,
I'm going to ask you your AC bill after this.
Yeah, so our India will have the fastest growth. I mean, for some people, it's great. Fastest growth in air conditioner sales. Its cooling demand will grow about 8x over the next 2 decades, right? So how do we cool ourselves in a hot country, in a humid country, which is also sustainable? Because you can run your ACs, for indoor cooling, but it is contributing to what is called urban heat island effect. Means
throwing out all that
outside, you feel that heat, right? So it's contributing to that. So how do you bring in nature into your urban design, right? Now in Singapore, you can't build a new building without more leaf cover than the cemented area that's built.
I see.
Right. So it has to be some consciousness has to be brought into how we are creating our cities.
So those things I'm going to talk about in terms of how we can do that. I wanted to come to you, Guneet, again, to press the point of climate change. Was there, or sustainability, was there ever one thing that happened that made you perhaps consider this more, even when it comes to filmmaking? I know that I was trying to think about films in India that have been made, or shows on climate change that connect the storytelling and the policy making. There are very few. There are some shows like Breathe. Tumbad has a kind of indirect connection, perhaps, with greed and exploitation. Elephant Whisperer and some of the work that you've done, that connection is very tangible and very evident. And even if you look at the elephants that are orphaned, perhaps deforestation, drought draws them out of the forest. They go looking for food. They go looking for water. Some of them get electrocuted. Some of them, like in your documentary, that happens. And then this wonderful story about how you can rehabilitate and grow and adopt elephants. not with a lot of success, but this couple, an elephant whisperer,
Yeah.
Burman and Bonnie, they do
Burman
it.
and Belly.
They do it very well. So even to make that documentary, was there a particular instant that said, okay, this is something that a story I need to tell?
Yeah, so my sister, Simran Monga, actually went on to study climate, and she was a working professional, and it was a mid-career, dropping everything and wanted to go study at SCAD in US. And that actually brought in a lot of knowledge into life on the expanse of it, on the way the world is going, and even consciousness. So from every day, segregating waste with passion and teaching that with passion to our staff and our societies, to absolutely not using plastic, especially in water bottles. Like I'll go thirsty and not use plastic bottles. So, and like from any, when we go to any religious fronts to, pray, and then there's plastic there, nothing else breaks my heart more than that. I'm just like, not in the name of God, not in the name of, we can be better, like, because, you see Darbar Sahib and you see these amazing gurdwaras using steel for thousands and thousands and thousands of people coming every day, like lakhs of people coming every day. So why can't, like, places with like 200 people, 500 people coming using, or even 10,000 people use steel, like going back to our basics, there is a lot of that, changing your your drinking pattern, your, the spots at home. So it's literally going back to basics. And that is now becoming a fashion, which is a good thing. But for me, a lot of awareness came to me from my sister Simran. And so there is definitely a more consciousness. There is definitely an everyday consciousness embedded from our film sets to having like metal bottles for everybody. My biggest fights are about plastic bottles.
Yes, there are none here.
Yeah, even in the word of convenience, like I think it's just about having more conversation. So from gifting, I'm literally one of those who calls people and says, next year imagine your gifts like this. So can we get rid of the box? Can we get rid of
the packaging and the processing?
There is so much plastic, It's about putting that layer of consciousness.
Right.
When you ask that question, the answer comes.
Right.
You can give a plant in a gold, pot.
Maybe not gold, but
silver. But
clay also
no, I'm just saying
because,
no, I'm just saying that, the idea of,
the value.
The value, the giving.
Right.
I'm just saying that, I was telling you an extreme thought as a joke, but what is very important.
My birthday is coming up. You can happily give me a gold plant. It's fine.
I have never gifted those guys. I have always done sustainable gifting, but that is also something that is led by my sister in the company. So there has been a lot of that conversation.
I think it's consciousness plus aspiration. You got to make that sustainability more aspirational.
Yeah.
So, like if you came to our office today, it's completely sustainably built, right? But it's a contemporary, modern office. Our flooring is 100% biodegradable. All our carpeting, and it's an entire building. All the carpeting has been manufactured in a factory running 100% renewables.
Amazing.
More than 1,000 plants, all irrigated with retreated water.
Right.
We've used the natural lighting in a way that we've reduced lighting load by 30%, right? But it's a swanky, contemporary office where people want to come and work.
Right.
So it's how do you make sustainability aspirational from something which is
Absolutely.
It's not. We say, I once wrote a poem, from sacrifice to desire, right? And it's critical that we make this desirable.
Absolutely.
Right? And convenient.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. Either people feel that, this is going to take us back into some very unmodern, very inconvenient lifestyle, or on the other hand, that it's going to cost a lot of money. And those things I'll come to a little bit, including, because you touched on this, and the green sets that we can really have, and our ways of living. But to touch on how we can partner in terms of storytelling and in terms of policy making, how can we make more collaborative projects, do you think, Guneet, when it comes to an issue like this? Because I really believe that when it comes to films that are watched, as you said, by so many people?
You know, I know that I'm going to lead into this question by, you know, it's one thing to make film sets green and I'm sure many companies are doing that and are aware of that, and many more need to do across television, across advertising, across all the media. But I actually wanted to bring in a point of like my wedding was fully sustainable. And we had fully sustainable, from gifts to everything.
That's why you're here today.
Thank you. But I think that we need to make weddings sustainable, you know, because that is far more than film sets in the country. And like,
that is margin to mainstream.
in a full Sardar wedding, our finale lunch, like our wedding lunch, was on pattas. Like it was South Indian on pattas. You know, and it was just very different from our culture or expectation, you know. It's very, very, all the gifts were in a metal lunchbox, you know. Even like my conversations with mithai walas. So basically, I firstly met 100 plus mithai walas for giveaway mithai, okay. And then when I finally found a vendor who's amazing in Delhi, in Paharganj, I was like, how will this come to me? Because the wedding is in Bombay. And he said, yeah, we pack everything in this plastic, it's Ziploc, and we can send it there. I said, no, can't happen. So I can't take it from you. And he's like, but there is no other way. Then I can't guarantee the freshness of the matri, of the mithai. How will it be fresh? Then this is like a massive wedding favors shop, you know, and that's their core business. They're like, we send this around the world. We send this all over India. And it was almost like, no, it's not possible. You know,
this is the only way.
This is the only way, and we draw the line, right? And then we came up with, in fact, my mom-in-law helped, and she came up with those huge tin tiffins, you know, like not tiffins, like huge tin boxes, almost like buckets, you know, with a lid.
And insulated?
No, it's just tin. So all the mithai was put in that, and
it preserves.
And wrapped with newspaper so that it's airtight. Just the cap and airtight. And 10 of those brought in like kilos of mithai. And when it came, and it was put on train from Delhi and taken from train here, cargo loaded, we picked it up from here. Like my family staff there put it, and we picked it up here. And when it came, and all those tin boxes went to gurdwaras for donation. You know, so they're being used. You know, they're being used as baltis. You know, so they were those handle wali baltis, but we just had to think that how is this being done.
But you have no idea how helpful this will be for some people who actually might be thinking about it, but not sure.
Yeah, it's totally possible.
Like, should let it be somebody else start with it, because it's too overwhelming for us to consider.
We had complete garbage segregation. We had no plastic, and we had a team to whatever that garbage was for segregation and for disposal. So that was very, very important per function to just have those conversations. So it was a zero waste. You know, even our invites were either digital. You know, so it was just everything was thought through. Like bags in everybody's rooms, like those favor bags that you have in everybody's room. So we thought about those. Those were paper bags. You know, they were not plastered with our photos on it. You know, in fact, we had a karigar hand sew some little stars.
So can you reuse it?
So they were, and we were not personalizing them.
Exactly.
So that, you know, people don't have to go in the market with our photos on it. So just use the bag. I don't want my picture on it.
But those are such lovely, wonderful, concrete takeaways that people can get in terms of how to introduce sustainability into our day-to-day lives. Because it's called All About Her, I wanted to spend some time talking about women. When it comes to women, I think in households, certainly in my house, I make a lot of decisions. And I think that when it comes to the kitchen, when it comes to running the house, when it comes to managing a house, women do tend to make decisions in terms of what washing machine to buy, in terms of all those things that you do. So I wanted to come to you, Arunabha, to talk about how you see women, perhaps, in terms of helming the change towards sustainability, towards awareness for climate change. Where do you think the women can come in?
So it's, I mean, in three ways. Inside the house, outside the house, and in recognizing how women are impacted by a change in climate. You know, let's get that right also, because there is gender inequity in how heat stress impacts a lot of our farming. right, is done by women.
Yes.
Right? You imagine a farmer, or the textbook photograph will be of a male farmer, etc. But actually, the men have come to the cities as migrant labor.
Right.
And a lot of the farming is that. Now, how is the changing climate, how is heat stress impacting the women out in the fields? But that set aside, inside the house, I think decisions on appliance energy efficiency will save money, will save energy, and make the house a lot more climate friendly. Right? So whether you're buying a washing machine or whether you're buying an air conditioner or refrigerator, please make those conscious choices. The second thing is, again, as Guneet was rightly saying, all that focus that you gave, that thoughtfulness that you put into how you're designing your wedding.
Yeah.
Right? How do we make that happen through our day-to-day lives, right? Waste segregation at home, right? You can say, well, someone else will do it, but it just becomes that much more harder for reprocessing waste and recycling it when it's mixed waste.
Right.
Then comes actually what women can do, sort of outside the house, building new careers in sustainability. In Amritsar, there are 1,200 autos that have already shifted to electric autos.
Wow.
But electric autos are also easier to maintain.
Yes.
So now there are several hundred women driving pink e-autos. I've met them. I mean, it's part of a CEEW program that we have to channel them in that area. Women using clean energy products to run rural enterprises. The silk reeling, milk chilling, small textiles, food processing. We had a program called Powering Livelihoods. We estimate it's a $50 billion market for the country. Our program alone, we have supported about 35,000 odd livelihoods. 50% more have been women, and these are not recipients, they are micro entrepreneurs.
Right.
So I think we have to completely reimagine the agency that women have in both decision making, but also in creating enterprises that then have, in an organic but systemic way, impact many, many more people.
Yes. And I think that's so interesting to talk about it from an empowerment perspective, to talk about the fact that it can change not only the world, but also your life and give you a new lease, a new sense of independence, finance, and otherwise entrepreneurship, which I think is that aspirational, that quality that you're bringing into sustainability.
And I think that there is a very important statement that people need to internalize, that this is not a third party who's going to come fix it.
Yes.
If not me, then who will?
Yeah.
If not me and I, then who else?
Yeah.
There's nobody coming.
I want to ask you a similar question also about women in sustainability at a home level and at a leadership level, because as I said earlier on in this conversation, I feel like you have been that speaker, that amplifier for so many women's voices. You have consciously chosen to work with a lot of female directors, the few that we have, and hopefully we'll see more of. And also recently, I think earlier this year also, you've launched Women in Film in India, bringing women in leadership positions as producers together. So these are conscious things that you're doing in terms of trying to create a community, trying to empower, trying to build. So when it comes to sustainability also, I wanted to ask how you see that when it comes to women in positions.
I think we're still at a stage of a lot of messaging and a lot of awareness, because this is not one thing you can buy off the shelf. It's a habit change conversation. It's an everyday conversation. So I feel like even in our movies, like if our big film stars, choose to carry a metal bottle with them, that'll become a rage, even with little dialogues, and that level of consciousness, comes in, so it becomes cool,
Exactly.
Only appeasing to the pop culture and films have the power to mass change habits,
Yes.
and that is something that needs to be spread out to everybody in position of making those decisions, and writing those dialogues and having those conversations, having those workshops with writers, with actors, with producers, and having those conversations. We are going to be starting a series of those workshops from Women in Film, in terms of just having that conversation on how do we use cinema at large.
Right.
It's one thing to have green sets.
Right.
It's one thing to have those conversations, which we must have.
I wanted to ask you if there is an image in your mind from cinema anywhere in the world, or something that you would like to create. As you said, like if a big star were to do this, then people would follow.
Yeah.
So whether it's walking around with that stainless steel bottle or saying something, is there something that you can think of, or is there something that you would like to make next which would have that visual?
Actually, a couple of my upcoming films are all about climate change.
Really?
Subconsciously again, not consciously. Like it's not been a strategy or anything, but in our scripts are fully focused on that. There is a lot to be done and spoken about.
Yeah.
In fact, you were asking about what we can do with policy and filmmaking coming together.
Yes.
So I was just saying that we're still in those early days of letting people know, and using cinema for that will be the best.
Yeah.
So yeah, our upcoming work at Sikya Entertainment is on climate change. 2 big films. Our scripts are in place. Yeah.
I wanted to come a little bit to sustainability and the food on our plate.
Yes.
There's been a lot of talk, some of which I understand the connections with, some of which I'm hoping that you'll shed some light on, in terms of our eating habits, whether we eat seasonal, whether we eat local, whether we eat meat or we don't, and how that impacts the climate and the world, and what we can or should be doing.
Well, again, what do we think about as food? We've always thought of it as total amount of calories. So, we all grew up in India where we're just about...
And some taste.
Yeah, well, but our entire green revolution was add more and more calories, right?
Yes.
Because the fear of we're going to run out of food, right? But what it did was it also destroyed the diversity on our plates.
Yes.
I mean, my 13-year-old daughter, she says, you can go anywhere in the world, but the best food is in India. We have so much diversity. And I'm glad she has internalized this. But how do we make this mass, right? We've got to move away from a rice-wheat binary towards, things like millets, which are much more water efficient, much more nutritious by kilogram, right? And more climate resilient.
Right.
And you can make it aspirational. Now it's part of fusion foods. Now it's part of advanced restaurants doing it. But it's also part about state procurement, where they're giving it in midday meals, etc. So one thing is the kind of grains you're consuming. The second, as you said, is it seasonal or, yes, we would love to have a mango in December. But there is something about also waiting for that mango in March. Right?
Or blueberries any time of the year.
So I think there is, and there also, it's not that you shouldn't ever not have an out of season product. But how you preserve that matters.
Yeah.
Cold chains, 30% of all agricultural produce gets wasted. Yes. Because you've not preserved it properly. Right. So you have sustainable cold chains. You can use solar-based cold storages, etc. Right. So that helps the farmer preserve some of the startups we have been supporting are focused exactly on this. It increases farmers' incomes by 3x.
Right.
The dehydrated fruits and flowers are, fetch you that much more money in the market because it has a longer shelf life.
Right.
Then you talked about meats.
Yes.
Again, conscious consumption. I don't want to give any lecture about whether you eat meat or not eat meat. But industrial scale, meat agriculture, which is, you've seen it in the US or in other parts of the world, that has had a serious consequence. And finally, it's about water. Most of the water, more than 80% of water we as humans consume, it goes into agriculture. And, India consumes more groundwater than China and the United States put together. We are drawing down our water tables to grow crops in areas that don't eat those crops. You're growing rice in Punjab, where it's a wheat eating culture, right? So consciousness about the water that you're consuming through your food or even through the cotton shirt you're wearing, right? This requires some labeling. So it's not about just packaging and non-packaging. We need to be, today you go into a Starbucks, you'll see X calories, etc. But we should also have a carbon footprint label. We should have a water footprint label, right? Because that will immediately trigger some changes. It'll nudge our behaviors differently. I would say it's soil to gut. It's not just farm to fork.
Right.
It's like, how healthy is the soil in which this thing was grown? What will it do for my gut?
That's an interesting thought to think about. My friend Niranjana always asks a question for every podcast that I do, and she wants our guests to tell her that she's correct. Sometimes she is, sometimes she isn't. Her question is connected to food because she herself is a vegan.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a vegan because she cares for the planet and animals.
Yeah.
And her question is actually, are vegans living more sustainable lives in terms of their connection with the planet?
Technically, yes. See, about a fifth of, just about 20% of greenhouse gases comes from agriculture. A lot of that comes from poor agricultural practices, and that could be for growing crops also, but also for industrial scale animal farming.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So fixing that will help for sure.
Right.
But it does not mean everyone has to necessarily turn vegan. As I described, if you made conscious choices about the kinds of grains you're consuming, about this kind of, localization, about the seasonalization of your dietary choices, you can have a huge impact. Over and above, also, the way your food waste can be reused and repurposed for many other things. So it's not just a single pathway to sustainability, but recognizing that agriculture has a huge footprint.
Right.
How do we convert our footprint to our foodprint? So what is it that we are going to do in terms of putting food on the plate that is good for the human body, it's good for the animal body, and it's good for the ambient environment? This is called One Health approach. Right. The planetary health, animal health, and human health. We can have a One Health approach towards public health.
So it is possible to eat in a way that you can be sustainable without compromising taste, budget.
Absolutely. Well, that's how I eat.
I'm
a foodie.
I want to come a little bit to practical aspects of what we're talking about for people living in their homes, who we're talking about living sustainability. We're talking about climate change. So what are things that people can do in their homes? And I want to touch on how it impacts them in terms of things that I'm concerned with, which is costs of living that are going up, connected to climate change, whether it's my AC bill, which is one thing that I don't know if you're worried about your air conditioning bill, but I am. And I feel like the summers are long, the winters are short.
Yeah.
Our winters are over like this, hardly, even in Delhi, sweater
now,
weather.
this year it's going to be what we are reading, and
Valley,
it's getting extreme, and it's very hard. I feel like living in that extreme weather.
I've told now the place to buy a home is Siberia, because that will be temperate. If everything is going up a few degrees, that will be lovely and just the right temperature. But
only briefly.
But yes, only briefly, and for various other reasons, it might not be the best place to live. But coming to our homes. Are there gadgets? Is there technology that we can adopt?
Well, first of all, it's how we build our homes. Yes, we got to think about the materials, the kind of bricks you're using, etc. All of that has an implication. But let's leave that aside for a second. Let's just think about energy efficiency. We now know fans, air conditioners, refrigerators, they all have these energy efficiency labels, star labels, right? Please, let's buy the higher star label products. Yes, they are marginally more expensive upfront. They will save you lots more money over the lifetime of that product.
Right.
That's number one. Second is even what you talked about, cooling. Passive cooling. Passive cooling is how do you cool down your home without the air conditioner? I'm not saying get rid of the air conditioner, but how do you bring down the ambient temperature itself? There have been experiments done in Gurgaon, right? Where same building, one flat on floor 10, one flat on floor 11. One has a shade, one doesn't have the shade. There's a 4-5 degrees differential in the temperature, right? So use the passive cooling in order to reduce the amount of AC bills that you'll be consuming. Third thing, and this is, I think, one of the biggest things we could be doing as urban residents, really focus on rooftop solar.
Yes.
Energy consumption in buildings is one of the highest sources of energy use and of course related to greenhouse gases. Rooftop solar will save you money.
Yeah.
Big time. Now there's a program in India, PM Surya Ghar Yojana,
yes,
right? 1 crore homes, that's 10 million homes are to get rooftop solar. Please just log on to that website, right? Register yourself with your discom and you will get subsidy, up to about 55% of the upfront cost is subsidized altogether. Then, you can, out of a, say, 2-3 kilowatt system on top of your roof, you can generate close to about 350 units of power. An average household in India is consuming much less. You take that extra units, feed it back into the grid and make money.
Right.
So not only are you bringing down your electricity bills, but you're actually making money over time. This is one of the most important conscious decisions we can start making. Yes, we can turn off the lights, we can turn off the taps, etc. But this is a proper, it's like I'm going to buy a new TV. I used to tell my wife, 10 years ago, I said, I want a Diwali where people will walk into a store and not walk out with a TV. Yes, please walk out with the TV, or walk out with a solar panel as well. And now you have vendors, etc., who can do that end to end for you.
I want to ask you, because you said rooftop panels, and a very long time ago, when my father was alive, I remember my mother telling me that he invested in rooftop solar panels for Pataudi and for Delhi. He was not one who spoke about caring for the environment so much, but he did put little yellow post-its all over our house saying, turn the lights off, turn the lights off. He would say, you can't go to Priyanka's house because the petrol costs too much. And I was very aware of the value of money as a result of that. And I thought we really don't have very much. And I remember him saying also these conversations that it was costly to invest in those solar panels. But my question to you is, now when I go home to Pataudi, those solar panels heat up the water in our bathrooms. Technology must have advanced over the 15, 16 years. Now they can do a lot more. So I'm thinking of maybe, I'll ask my mother to pay the money for that. So how would that work? And I want to ask you also, Guneet, whether these are things that you, and I'll come to you in terms of your house, the things that you do. But I'll just quickly ask first, because I'm very interested in this. What could we do to upscale that?
Those solar water heaters that were perhaps installed.
Because they don't do anything else except for just heat the water.
Now you need what is called a solar rooftop system. Right? And as I said, it's just the technical thing is 1 kilowatt takes up about 100 square feet. Right. In an average home, you can easily deploy about 2 to 2.5 kilowatts. You'll have that much roof space. Right. In your father's home, you'll probably have a lot more roof space. The subsidies that are there right now will cover at least 55% of that upfront capex. It's linked to the grid. Okay, so it's not just standalone. So any extra power that you're generating over and above what you're consuming, you can feed back into the grid.
And then you can use that.
It'll show up in your electricity bill.
Right.
So it's called net metering. This much I bought from the grid, this much I've sold back into the grid. So even if you're consuming more power, some of it is getting offset by the rooftop solar. So this is now, and the system will last 20 odd years. You will get your payback within 3-4 years.
And maintenance over those 20 years?
It's become significantly more convenient now. The solar panels can withstand extreme weather, etc. People worry, if it's raining, your output. You just need light.
Nighttime, no
Nighttime you can't. But the thing is, again, because it's connected to the grid, you're not living in darkness, right? You're generating power when the sun is shining. Even when it's raining, it is generating power, maybe with a little less efficiency. But you, on maintenance, now the vendors have to give you after-sale service for at least 5 years. So this end-to-end vendor ecosystem was not there perhaps when your father installed. And that used to be a really big inconvenience for citizens at that time. I know one of my mama tried to install in Kolkata. I have to run here, I have to run there. That's not the case anymore. When you register, you get a list of empaneled vendors. They have their gradings. So you can choose, you can pick your vendor, you can even ask for different quotes. End to end, they will give it to you.
And how, because we just referred to some homes that may have lots of roof space. What about homes that don't have enough roof space?
So, as I said,
how much roof space do you need?
So, an average home in India is not consuming more than 300 units a month, right? Many are consuming much less. So a 200 kilowatt system will generate about 220, 230 kilowatt units. A 3 kilowatt system will generate about 360 units. So likely you are going to be generating more than you're consuming.
Right.
Now, of course, you have, dozens of air conditioners everywhere. You will have more consumption, but even what you're generating, you will get money back.
Right.
For apartment complexes, some of your common areas, right, can be covered. So whether it's the lighting, community halls, your lifts, etc., those things can be covered. So again, even the apartment, cooperative housing residents will still get a reduction in their electricity bill. So it's become a lot more convenient. The technology costs have come down significantly. This is a very important conscious choice now Indians can start making.
Right.
In addition to, of course, turning off, your father is absolutely right with the post-it notes. In addition to turning off the fan. But even there, maybe, things have progressed there also. Now you can install sensors, right? We have sensors in our offices.
Yes.
Let's install sensors in our homes.
Yes.
So you forget to switch off, it's fine, it will switch off.
I will never, because of those post-it notes, I will never forget to switch off.
Think of it as like a James Bond movie, right? The lasers go off when you enter and when you exit.
Right.
So, again, make it aspirational, make it cool. Sustainability doesn't only have to be, oh my God, my father told me this, I'm going to get a rap on my knuckles.
I went to this wonderful wellness place in Calicut called Tula. And their entire setup is built sustainably. The rooms were so nice and cool with no AC. And they had water flowing through the walls behind.
Yes.
And they had a water plant through which the temperature of the water controlled the temperature of the spaces that we lived in. And it is just so nice and convenient and, lovely. And having rooms with no AC, with no air conditioning. And and I'm very curious about that. So I went up and I saw the whole water plant and, how do you even build this at home?
That was my next question. Would be like,
but those are conversations that I'm also trying to have. But our Delhi home, I want to say that both my sister-in-law and my husband are very, very conscious. So we've always had solar panels at our Delhi house. I have been married into a family which is very environmentally conscious also.
Yes.
So that's lovely, and those are the conversations we have. And in fact, they live in Palampur, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they live in Palampur very, very sustainably. They farm and they have their own food, and it's a very large part of our conversation, our home conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've answered all the 3 follow-up questions in terms of the sustainability in your home and the solar panels and whether you're aware of these gadgets.
And we're actually discussing building our home in Delhi. And the core part of that conversation is how do you build it sustainably.
Yes.
And it's becoming, people want to show off also. That, I did this and that, I learned on, say, water saving. Someone else has done something on energy. Someone else has done something on lighting, and then you're learning from each other. Right?
Absolutely.
And because then the architectural firms will also say, what, this is our offering.
Yes.
And we, just like you were talking about the weddings.
Yeah.
It becomes part of your portfolio.
Exactly.
Acha, you'll have the sustainable wedding or the non-sustainable wedding.
Right. And even in school. Even in school, in the curriculum, so my child knows. She says plastic is death for her.
Yeah.
And sustainability is cool for all of them in terms of their presence, no presence, plant a tree, recycle, don't waste on all the wrappings that we do, gift wrappings and things like that. We talked a little bit about sets, and you said, of course, the larger conversation is sometimes what you'll have on screen, and that will reach a wider audience. But I do just want to talk about the fact that we have certain mandates now, perhaps whether it's Disney, whether it's BBC, it's coming into certain Indian Yash Raj and other setups, perhaps, in terms of trying to create a green set.
Yeah.
As a producer, tell me a little bit about where you've seen that in India and how you try and adopt sustainability when it comes to being a producer.
So we do try and get consulting firms on board that are going to do waste management on everyday shoot. There are workshops that are held with the production teams and crews on how to at least segregate waste and make it more sustainable. And in places where there is a fixed set, we only have water tankers. I'm saying the wrong thing, but we have water dispensers. And people can go fill their bottles. Everybody is given bottles at the start of the film. So those are some things that one does. There's a lot more that one can do. It is also challenging. It's not so plain easy, but it is just something that is definitely, it's something like, I mean, Sikhya does, and we are a far smaller production company, and I'm sure everybody else can also do so. We do it where we can and how we can, but we talk about it a lot. It matters to us.
Do you also have you said the waste segregation?
Yes, and then we have a firm that comes and picks that waste up.
We have screens in our office where we're reporting every month how much waste we're generating, right? And then, and the competition is, can we have lesser than the last month, etc. You talk about food.
So you're tapping into the competitive elements. Personalities.
You're talking about food. We have a fruit of the month, this thing. So instead of people going, okay, here's a bag of crisps. Right. So, and it's all about product placement. Right. You place the basket of fruits right next to the water dispenser. People are going to the coffee machine. Even if you don't love fruits, you will pick it up. You left a bag of crisps there, people will pick up the bag of crisps.
Psychology.
Right? It's how you place the product. Right? And that's the intentionality that is needed. Coldplay made it so exciting to attend because you could go ride a bicycle at the concert and generate power. And dance on floors and generate power. Right?
And they had amazing way of water, like you just had those mugs and no plastic water.
And all the psychedelic lights and all that, those bands you wore, etc. Everything is reusable. You return, and you can't just walk away with it because the technology was done. If you walked away with it, it will stop working.
Right.
So you are returning it. Right. It's like you don't go to a 3D movie and take away the glasses. You're returning it. So you made everything that much more cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a large part. Coldplay was definitely a large part of conversation, and a lot of youth knows about it.
Absolutely.
And they keep announcing and they keep talking about it, and
the Coldplay concerts for various reasons get a lot of headlines. Even LED lights, waste segregation on set, as you said, no plastic, using local talent sometimes, using local production teams wherever possible. Those will help to minimize footprints wherever possible. And I'm happy to see that those things are happening. As we come a little bit towards the end of this, I just wanted to ask you again, because we like to highlight women. If there's a story perhaps from rural India, ideally involving some women, that you could share with us, that touched you in some way, that gave you hope.
I have lots of stories from rural India. You'll need a whole new show. In fact, I was talking about it in New York just last week. The story I like a lot is this lady called Kuni Dehuri. She is in Odisha, and she is a silk reeler. And silk, the women sit on the floor, and it's reeled on the mulberry yarn is reeled on the thighs. So this beautiful fabric that we get comes out of a lot of drudgery. Right? So now there's a company, we have a portfolio of companies that we're supporting, which are sort of clean tech startups focused on rural India. One of them focuses on solar silk reeling. Now this lady has become a solar silk reeler, right? And she has now gone and trained more than 500 other women to do that. So suddenly from something which is task of drudgery, they're showing up with a jacket as if they're working in a factory, working on a solar silk reeling machine. The PM even referred to her in one of his radio broadcasts. Why I say this is that it's kind of, you're not just empowering, because one of the problems with the way things are often framed is, you are the beneficiary of my largesse.
Right.
And I find it very problematic. We need stories where women are driving the change, but also, driving in ways that you've not always thought through.
Right.
They could be setting up their own micro businesses. From there could be, each one employs 3 other people. They are setting up something else. I've seen this with farmers practicing sustainable agriculture. I've seen this with women in rural Uttarakhand using a community radio station to send climate warnings.
Wow.
Right? There's something called Mandakini Ki Awaaz. We made a short documentary on her. So
So
when
fun.
frontline tribal women planting forests along the coast, because that helps when the storm surge comes, it reduces the seawater coming in. I can pepper you with hundreds of these stories, and that's why it's not about check the box, let's just give one woman story. There are literally hundreds and thousands of these stories that need the visibility.
As we come to the end of this, Guneet, I wanted to think, because you work with so many young people, so much of your audience is also youthful India and across the world. Is there one value that you would like to see imparted to them when it comes to young people pertaining to sustainability?
I'm very hopeful about young people. They are definitely more aware. I would just say freely ask questions. The minute you start asking questions, you will find answers. Just don't take it कि ऐसे ही होता है. ये यही है. There are things that generations lost out. Too much happened too soon, quickly in the last few years. And now as we think, on how we can unlearn a few things, how we can go back to a few things, simpler times are more beautiful. We are heavily wired on our phones and communications and everything. I would just say take a pause, celebrate the pause, and ask questions to be able to live better. And to each their own. There is no judgment.
Yeah.
But there is definitely, like, if I can, so can you, and that makes the whole world.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I'm certainly here asking questions, and thank you for answering all of them. I don't know if I can ask you to just close this discussion by saying perhaps one action that every household could take, people who are watching, that could make a real difference to our planet.
Install rooftop solar.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be aside. If I wanted to do this, who would I call?
As I said, you go to PM Surya Ghar Yojana website.
Okay.
You'll get a list of vendors.
Okay.
You take your pick. They've been graded as to who's good, who's semi-good,
nice,
etc. Take your pick.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your ideas, some takeaways in terms of how we can be more sustainable, why we should be more sustainable, and why being sustainable makes you more cool today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sona. And thank you. It was so nice meeting you.
Yeah, it's an
Thank
honor
you
to meet you.
Thank you for putting us together.
Thank you. I don't know what's happening outside. It was weird. It's like apocalyptic.
Climate extreme.
Yeah. It was sunny in the morning, and now I could hear like a storm.
Yeah, it's raining.
So let's get you home soon before the world ends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Change begins at home, and it begins with us. Small steps, thoughtful choices, and I think the courage to make sustainability a part of our everyday lives. So let's carry these lessons forward, and let's talk about the planet, not just in an abstract form, but actively with steps that we can actually take to protect it. A huge thank you to Dr. Arunabha Ghosh for showing us how climate action can be understood and how it can be applied in our daily lives, and to Guneet Monga for reminding us that storytelling and culture can move hearts and minds towards a greener, a more conscious way of living. Thank you for tuning in to All About Her, and please don't forget to share what sustainable steps you're taking, and do join us next time for more conversations that matter. Until next time, stay informed, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next episode.